Hello bros, I am back with another video. For this video, I would like to talk about ornaments. So ornaments or ornamentation, uh, it's pretty much auxiliary notes that come before the main note. So for example, something like a flam is an ornament. Right? And the note before the main note is called the grace note. It's the ornament. The purpose of a flam is to make a thicker and bolder sound out of your stroke compared to a regular stroke. So say a regular stroke like this versus right, the tiny note that I play slightly before the principal note sort of makes the sound a little thicker, a little bigger. And these ornamentations are often used in drumming. You won't see much of it in lower level drumming, but as you get towards more intermediate advanced drumming, they start becoming a lot more frequently written in music. They appear in concert orchestral drumming. They appear in drum set drumming. They appear in rudimental drumming. They're pretty much in every type of drumming there is. So though they're not super important to learn. You can still play without these, but they're very important like technical little pieces um, that add to the music. And some music it's very hard to play without the ornaments. The ornaments can be vital to some parts of music. So it's very important to learn these, especially when you start getting to higher level music. So, like I just showed you, the flam is probably one of the more basic ones. The flam is comprised of one main note and a grace note. Now the main note should obviously be higher than the grace note. The main note is the main note. It should be louder, more visible, and it should lag slightly behind the grace note. The grace note should come a little before the main note. And so having the main note be a higher stick height also helps with that, because since it's a higher stick height, it takes longer to get to the drum. And so that helps the grace note hit the drum first, since it's lower. Right? So the flam. The flam is also considered one of the rudiments. So if you want to practice that, you can, like I said, go practice your rudiments, and you'll eventually have to practice flams. So the flam is considered a one grace note ornamentation. You always want to keep a good stick height difference between the grace note and the flam. And when you switch between hands, the principal note on the right hand, if you switch hands, becomes the grace note on the left hand. And so when you switch hands, you have to learn how to keep the hand down. So that's one thing to keep in mind when practicing this. There are many ways to practice it. There are flam exercises in the books that I recommended, like dexterity or stick control. go look at those if you have them. They help a lot, especially dexterity. Dexterity has quite a bit of stuff. Now for tune ornamentations, this is called the drag or the ruff. It's essentially a flam, but instead of one grace note, it's two grace notes. And for this, obviously, since it has two notes, you need to play a double stroke, another rudiment. And the ruff or the drag itself is also considered its own separate rudiment as well. The drag, it's pretty common. I'd say a little less common than the flam, but drag is still widely used in the repertoire. To learn the drag, it's probably going to be a lot more efficient to learn the double strokes first. Right, doubles. Very important to learn to get a nice double right before the principal note. So yeah, the drag or the ruff works pretty much the same as the flam. One hand does the grace note, and the other hand is the principal note. The main thing to think about when playing the drag or ruff is the spacing of the double. Sometimes you want to play it a little closer together. Other times, musically, it makes more sense to play it wider. For that, you need to think about what kind of music you're playing, how the music's being phrased. If you need to, you can ask your conductor how he or she wants it to be heard. Because the way it sounds over the drum sounds different from the audience's position. So asking the conductor for some feedback is always a smart move. Now there is a 4-stroke ruff, which has 3 grace notes before the principal note. This is called the 4-stroke ruff. What I showed you before was a 3-stroke. This is a 4-stroke because it has 3 grace notes and then a principal note leading up. Right. So for this, it can be played 2 ways. Traditionally, it's played with a single stroke and a double stroke, and then the principal note. So you'll play 1 stroke with one hand, 2 strokes with the other. Like that. There are times when you can play it as single strokes. But when you play with single strokes, you have to keep in mind the volume of the grace notes. They should always be very drastically different from the principal. Right. Yeah, traditionally we work on the single double double sticking of it. Very rarely would you want to single stroke. Single strokes can be helpful if you're playing a softer dynamic. It gives you more control over the spacing of the grace notes. also the spacing of the notes is something else to think about as well, like the 3-stroke, like the regular drag, the 4-stroke rough. You can have different spacings. You have really tight spacing, or you'd have larger spaces like that. That's pretty similar to the other ones. One exercise I recommend for practicing your 4-strokes is playing this. So you want to play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then another way you can practice it is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So when you play it slow, it might feel a little weird, but the main focus is not on the sound necessarily, but the spacing. So and then when you get faster, right, you practice the motion. The faster you go, the more you have to drop the hands. The slower you go, the more you can control it, the slower you go. But once you get up to speed, it starts to get a little easier. But training the coordination between dropping both hands to get it to hit at the right spacings takes time, but something to practice. Anyway, it's not something that's super common in music, though the 4-stroke does appear. Not nearly as common as the regular 3-stroke or the flam, but it's still something that appears occasionally, especially in more advanced intermediate level stuff. So if you're aiming for that, definitely practice that, because if you don't and you see it in your music, don't know how to play it, kind of unfortunate. But anyways, that's it for this video, I think. So I guess I will see you in another video.